Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Wasatch Report. I'm Suzanne Sherman. Jeff Johnson, one of the founders of the Renegade Rambler Radio Network, has decided to add an extra show this week. So we thought we'd come at you live. This is a Thursday morning. I believe it is November 2nd. Is that right, Jeff?
It is November 2nd, which is not a happy day for me because after 17 days off, I have to return to work. So I don't like the November 2nd.
Well, I'm sorry. We're going to start your morning. We're going to start your morning off right, though. We're going to have some fun this morning. Number, if you want to call in live right now, 717-467-1736. I encourage you to follow us also on Facebook, facebook.com/Renegade Rambler Radio Network. We're doing some changing things up here at the show. We're going to try and add some more shows during the week. We're going to add some more content to our lineup here as well. When we're ready to make those announcements, give you further information, we'll do that. But for now, go to facebook.com/Renegade Rambler Radio Network. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Cowgirl Esquire. Also facebook.com/Cowgirl Esquire. And we also have an R3N fan page where we have some dialogue going on. I want you to follow us there. If you go to our main page as well on Facebook, there's a little link to an app you can listen directly, and we'll also have shows that are going to be looped. I'm in the process of uploading my shows from Mike Church's channel. He was generous enough to offer me a position when he launched his new network. And time being a factor for me after a year, I was no longer able to do those shows, but I do have them, and we'll make them available to you from time to time. The first one we're going to be rolling out was probably the most heated debate I had ever had on air, and that was with a gentleman named Charles Heller out of Tucson, Arizona. He has a radio program out there. Charles is very much in support of the National Reciprocity Act, a proposal which will require one state to accept as valid within its borders the concealed carry permit of every other state. Now, a lot of gun rights activists are very much in favor of this because they figure it will expand their gun rights. Well, hey, what's wrong with that? Well, I tell people we need to stay focused on our principles. Here at the Renegade Rambler Radio Network, we say that we are focused on 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers. Well, what does that mean? What that means is we look to our founding generation, our founding principles, when we analyze solutions to issues that we are facing presently. And within the proper context of that principle, we have to accept the fact that something that sounds good like national reciprocity is every bit as undesirable and unconstitutional as something that sounds as good in practice as affordable health care. They're both disasters in terms of federalism and the proper role of government. So Charles Heller and I have a very detailed debate. What you will hear from him, pretty much every argument he had was incorrect, starting with the foundation premise that the federal government, the national government in Washington, D.C., has constitutional authority under this of this program pursuant to the Second Amendment, which says a well-regulated militia. He uses the term regulated to justify regulation of firearms from a federal level. So you'll hear how we lay out this argument. I encourage everybody to listen to it and come back at me if you have any other things that you'd like to add. Charles and I were going to revisit this issue on a show subsequent to the one that I was on. He wanted to come back on with me, and when I tried to reach out to him again, he had blocked me from his email, so he was kind of done, I guess, with me at that point. But the debate goes on, and I think it is a perfect topic for the people on the supposed right, the gun rights activists, to look at, because again, it keeps us on the straight and narrow. If we stay on the principles of federalism, limited government, we're going to get to that again, that topic again today with regards to Switzerland, by the way, we will stay the right course, and maybe we can turn this thing around and salvage where we are. But Jeff, we had an incident the other day now. Diversity has resulted in yet another incident resulting in casualties. What's the death toll in New York now from a rented Home Depot truck?
I'm,
Obviously, I think it's nine
I
killed.
think it's 8 or 9. I don't remember. I didn't really update on that. But yes, here we are yet again, mourning the deaths of Americans or New Yorkers, New York citizens, in this case. And what are we hearing? Well, number one, first thing you got was Andrew Cuomo saying we needed to have an assault rifle ban. Good grief!
Did he really?
I don't know whether. Yes,
Did
he
he
did.
really?
Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York said we need an assault rifle ban. There's too many assault rifles in this country. You can't make this stuff up.
I think
So,
the perpetrator did have a.
you know,
Oh, well, here was another stupid one. I forgot who the woman was, but she said, "Why is President Trump wanting to send this individual to Gitmo, but not the shooter in Las Vegas?"
oh,
Did you see that?
no, I did not see it. I am so glad I didn't see that one. No, let's send that guy's corpse to Gitmo. That's a great idea. Oh goodness.
This is the mentality.
Anyway, I do love a lot of this stuff, and your good friend, and I'll keep his name out of this, put a couple different posts about these automatic trucks, with their automatic transmissions and their silencers, the mufflers. We need to have bans. It was quite humorous, and this is a tragedy. So that's, I'm sorry, I hate that there's humor already about it, but life does go on. People do find the humor in things. And quite honestly, the first thing out of Andrew Cuomo's mouth is a gun ban when it's a truck, So you just knew that it was going to come out, that people were going to talk about that. But that was not why. First off, let's talk about the first thing with this, and this is one of your favorite issues too. Okay, I can understand the first few people getting hit would be a total surprise, wouldn't expect it, and we out of the blue. But as they continued down this bike path, walkway, whatever this was in New York City, because I'm not quite entirely sure what it was, because I'm not from New York City. People further down obviously didn't have any situational awareness. Their heads were down. They were probably looking at their phones. They had their earbuds in there, listening to music. They weren't paying attention to their surroundings. They weren't situationally aware. Had some of these folks been situationally aware further down the road, again, the first few people, it's a surprise attack. They're not going to know it's coming. There's just no way. I don't even know that they could even avoid it. But the people further down that were hit, quite honestly, if you're aware of what's going on around you, you will find some cover, some way to get out of the path of this madman with this truck.
Well, and
we have to be aware of what's going on around us.
Yeah, and this is a great chance to have actually a productive conversation as a result of one of these issues, rather than going towards what the leftists always lean towards is, as you said, the gun control, because that really is their end game, is confiscation of firearms. And all you have to do is look at history and see the result of what has happened when firearms have been confiscated. And it's always happened under these totalitarian left-wing regimes responsible for killing over 100 million people. But here we have progressives, leftists in our own country, in our own elected offices, advocating the same thing. Quick side note was when I was in Chicago about a year or so ago, and I had a chance to speak with a couple of taxi drivers. Both of them were Black, and they expressed such dismay and disgust with not only the government in Washington, D.C., but particularly with Emmanuel, Government Rahm Emanuel, because Mayor, because the violence in that city, and they're focusing solely on gun control. They're not addressing the grievances and the troubles that are plaguing the society itself. They're saying, why are they doing nothing about the gang violence? All this government cares about is gun control. The other one was absolutely disgusted with the national government pardon my French, but that really is an adequate term right here. The national government in Washington, D.C., and their obsession again with gun control, and how they're also keeping the Black population enslaved as a result of this war on poverty. And it has done nothing to help the Black community. We also mentioned how he was disgusted how at least one generation of Black babies has been aborted. All of these under the guise of progressivism and humanitarianism. Once again, we go back to this fallacious notion that they're doing something good for us, something on our behalf. And one of the reasons you don't hear people like Schumer probably shouting from the rooftops against national reciprocity is that they know if they can get this under federal control, national control, they can use this as a platform upon which to constrict our carrying pre-existing rights. And they're smart enough to know that, and they're giving us enough rope to hang ourselves with.
Right. And that really goes back to the proper application of the Bill of Rights, because today we have this discussion so often. It's almost like a broken record when it comes down to this, because no matter, I can guarantee you, if I went onto Facebook right now, I'd find somewhere someone that's putting down that they have a Second Amendment right to own their guns. No, you don't. You have a natural right to self-preservation. The second you give government the ability to give you rights, or you give them the ability to take your rights. So you have to do the proper application of what did the framers say in the preamble, the reason for the Bill of Rights, to make sure that the general government understood the limits, that they had no authority over these things. So if you take the proper application, you take this completely out of Washington, D.C.'s hands by giving it the proper application. By fighting about it being a right, you give them power. By saying it is something that's denied to them completely, then every federal firearms law ever enacted is unconstitutional and should be gone. That's the difference between a proper application and one that feels good.
Well, and this is, we have to find this and play it sometime. I think I had sent you a link with Hillary Clinton talking about rights, and that these are constitutional rights. She admits, she lies when she opens her mouth. We know she's lying. She says, yes, the Second Amendment is a constitutional right, but rights are subject to regulations. Again, I've said this time and time again. If you acknowledge the fact that it is a restriction on the federal government, you cannot say that, well, we are absolutely prohibited from regulating these rights, but they're subject to, wait a minute, nothing, it doesn't work that way, right? So if they try to say this is a constitutional right, we can regulate it, but to acknowledge that it is a restriction and they trip over themselves, it simply cannot be. And that's why we have to have an honest discussion about that. What we'll do is right now is return to the language of my tribe, our tribe, and that is the situational awareness, because I have some articles I'll bring up during the break about the Second Amendment, as well as some of the other things that we were going to talk about. But Jeff, absolutely, what you were saying before, situational awareness is key. And this is one of the instances where when this happens, I always say, how could people not see a truck coming down a bike path? London Bridge, France, this is happening. I think we've seen this in Germany. How can people not be seeing this? I understand there could be a crowd of people. I wasn't there. I know that there is a large crowd, but when a truck is coming down a path and there's something going on, look around you. Look around you as you're going about your business for the next few days, and take into account how many people have earbuds in, how many people are either on their phone or walking and talking on their phone, how many people are absolutely unaware of what is going on around them, and they just don't want to accept the fact that there are these dangers right now. And I think I attribute this to what we call normalcy bias. People don't want to accept the fact that things are changing. It makes them uncomfortable. And Yeah, a lot of people live in areas where you don't think it's going to happen here. My boys went to Park City. There's always a big Halloween festivities down on Main Street in Park City. And I said, be careful. I know we're in Utah, but keep your head up and look around you. If there's a car coming down this way or something going on, when you think about the situation in Las Vegas, clearly you can't be aware of, when you're at a concert, of what's looking out every single window. But gosh darn it, Jeff, could somebody notice a window had been broken out? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to go back to what you're saying here about looking around. Okay, situational awareness requires you to be looking around.
Yeah.
But when you're looking around, you said look around and see. But what are you seeing? You got to start thinking tactically. When you're looking around, actually look at people. Number one, make eye contact with people. It number one tells them that you are aware of that specific person. So if that person has ill intent, the fact that you made eye contact, you looked right at them, they're more than likely going to move on because they know that you are aware of them. Number two, actually look at people. Here we go. This is going to be misconstrued by the left, but actually assess what you're seeing about these people. Does that person look like a threat? Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at grandma over there with grandkid. She's not, her threat level is pretty low. So I can move on from grandma that over there with the grandchild. Actually look at people and make an assessment. Make an assessment of the people you're seeing. You are going to be a victim because that one person you're not looking at and making eye contact with or not assessing is the guy that's going to come up and get you.
Okay, I'm going to chime in on a couple things here. We started out with eye contact, being aware of specific individuals, making contact with them so they know you're aware of them. And then, like you said, look at the people themselves in the situation around them. And we might probably talk through the break on this. Let me know if you want to take a break. We have about 2 minutes before. But first, with the issue of eye contact, I am a student of Louis Auerbach. I took many firearms classes with him. If you don't know who Louis is, most people know who Colonel Jeff Cooper was, United States Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel, who is also known as Mr. 1911. He is probably the definitive expert on defensive weaponry. And what Louis taught me, again, as a student of Colonel Cooper, was eye contact. Be aware of what's around you. Walk confidently. If you see people, look at them. Let them know that you are aware of them. And what he said is criminals, when it comes to their own survival, are extremely smart. They're not going to go after somebody that's not an easy victim. And then he pointed me out. My son was actually 14 at the time, and he was taking Louis' defensive handgun introductory 2-day class. And he points to me, he says, look at her. A criminal would be crazy to go after her. You know why? Look 2 seats over. There is her cub. That's a mama grizzly right there. They're not going to go after somebody that has the look she has in her eye and the demeanor they have. So you don't have to walk around looking like a badass wanting a fight, but are you aware? Are you acknowledging that people are present? Yes, that ties into another situation that occurred when I was with my mother in Los Altos. And this ties in with your example of assessing the individuals themselves, even if you're not making the eye contact. And yes, I'm going to come across right now as a white privileged, racist, fascist right now when I tell you this story. But you know what? Jeff, reality is reality, and you can't sugarcoat it to make people feel good about themselves. And I say, even from my social media pages to my radio shows, if you can't handle reality, if you can't handle, the way that I like to say things, go somewhere else. If you need your stuff sugarcoated, go to the candy store, go to the bakery, but I'm not the one for you. So anyway, here's the situation. I'm downtown in Los Altos. It's a very wealthy community in Silicon Valley in California. And I'm walking with my mom, and she has Parkinson's. So she has a walker. She also has her purse hanging down from this walker there. And in this community downtown, it is a lot there. The community now is changing. There are younger people, but it used to be an older community. and we'd have a lot of these snatch and grab purse stealings and thefts from people. Some people would even get knocked down. So look at the people that are in the community. Do they fit in? Is this somebody that you would see there normally? And the demographics in Los Altos, again, primarily white people. And a black gentleman got out of a car, an old car in front of a bank. We also have a lot of bank robberies there right by the front door of the bank, and assessed us. He was looking at my mom and her helper and this purse just hanging down. I knew he was looking and I knew he was thinking. So I turned around and I just faced him, and I stood there while they walked a little bit, and I didn't say anything, but I just let him know, you're not getting us by surprise. And so he turned and ran off and went to go do something else, whatever that was. So, you know, had my mom just been with her helper that day, both of whom were completely unaware of their surroundings, would things have been different? I won't know, but I know what didn't happen because I was aware. With that, I guess you might want to cut to a break.
That's completely up to you. We can go right on through, or we can cut to a break, because I have a situational story I've told in the past. It's not a new one.
Well, let's keep rolling.
So we can just go right through. We can keep going. I stopped at a local convenience store. I don't remember if I was buying a drink or it doesn't really matter. I was in line, and a couple walk in, and I will just leave it at that as a couple. And so I immediately look at them, I assess them, and I'm always, okay, just for truth be told, I'm always armed. I'm armed 24 hours a day, whether I'm at work or at home. So I'm armed. I'm in line. My senses go from probably a green to about a yellow. I put them on I'm watching them list. So you want to do that, folks. When you're in some place, you watch people, and you're going to assign whether it's a go or a no go. You're going to look at someone and go, they're yellow. There's something about them. Yeah, go ahead. Let's
explain what the levels of alertness are going from green, yellow, orange, red. I'll let you do that.
Well, I'm going to let you do it because someone's giving you a definition, and I don't know your definition. So I'm going to let you give their definition. For me, it's green is just a.
I think I use white. I think
I could white. I mean, green is just a simple, like I said, you got that 78-year-old grandmother with a grandchild playing in a park. They're a green. I'm not feeling any threat level from this person. Now, a yellow, you'll look at someone and say, man, there's just something not right. It's just, it's just a gut feel, and it's not a specific threat, but it's just, you put them on a watch list. You're watching them now because something just set them off, and now they've just moved up from a green to a yellow. And now I'll let you go on there because evidently you have an orange, which I think is you suspect a specific threat. I think.
Yeah,
is that correct?
And I also look at it as a level of alertness just in general, not with regards to any particular individual. But for instance, the lowest level, whether you call it green or white, you're essentially asleep. You have no concerns in the world. But then when you go up to yellow, you should be in yellow anytime you're out and about. Now, that doesn't mean you're paranoid. That doesn't mean you're afraid. It just means you are aware. So I use this in a sense where, well, green, I'm asleep. But even when I'm green by my night table, I have a means by which if I need to solve a problem, I can wake up and use that device should something happen. So then when you're out and about and in public, that device now is on my hip. And that doesn't mean I am ready to take that out at first sign of trouble, but I'm in orange and I'm in yellow. And I'm aware of what's around me. And it's little things like not getting yourself boxed into traffic, staying out of certain situations. When something can start to change, now you can go to a level of orange. I had a level of orange, for instance. We were parked in Salt Lake City looking for directions. My son was on the phone. He was driving. So we pulled over. We're looking for directions to see where we're going to go. And this girl walked past us. She was a white girl with purple hair. Walk past the car, and then I hear this yelling and screaming behind the car. I turn around, and it is a very agitated black man. I'm sorry if people are bothered by me using, colors to define people, but that's just the way I do it. That's how I grew up. They would define people that were suspected of committing crimes, and the car they were in, the color of their hair, what they were wearing, and their skin color was part of the description. So anyway, he had an open button-down shirt with nothing underneath, so I couldn't see any firearm on his hip, but he was very, very agitated. He was yelling at her, and she just walked past. And then he goes past our car and sees me in the vehicle and starts yelling and approaching our vehicle now. And he's within about 10 feet away. That was orange for me. That was okay. This guy might be a problem. My gun came out, was in my lap. He did not see me. I did not brandish it, but I was ready to go. At that point, my son drove off quickly because he did his job. I did mine. His job was to get us out of the situation. My job was to handle it if this guy tried to breach the vehicle and harm us if we could not get out because we were blocked in traffic. So we worked as a team. Now, that to me, I think, is a great example of handling something in situation orange. Situation red, it's game on. Somebody is a threat to you. And what I say is lethal force is justified. And this is what we also taught in the NRA personal protection and concealed carry class. Lethal force is justified when you have an imminent fear of serious bodily injury or death. And that fear is analyzed according to the reasonable person test. Would a reasonable person under same or similar circumstances be under that fear of imminent serious bodily harm or death? So that's what you have to apply, and people need to think in those terms as opposed of walking around. Remember a couple of years ago they had that game Pokemon Go, and you literally saw people walking across the street, walking through malls with their head down, fully engaged in this phone. I told a story how one gentleman had somebody walk into their private garage because some little Pokemon Go thing was shown on their phone as being in there. Where would they draw the line? Would they walk into somebody's, we have entrances into house from attached garages. Would they go into somebody's home? What do you think would happen then?
Right. So, yeah, that had the potential to turn out very badly, especially for that person entering a house. Had someone inside all of a sudden been surprised by this person, they may have defended themselves to that person's detriment because they had a phone and they were looking for a Pokemon. It's ridiculous.
Yes. It's absolutely crazy. And then I also like to address, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the way I'm applying this is I'm applying this to my assessment of people. I'm giving them a color as far as green, yellow, that they've peaked some semblance of, I'm a little bit worried. And my story here will go into, they actually peaked in orange. So I actually became turned eye-to-eye contact concerned with these people. And at that point, this thing diffused. But I mean, and then red would be, they are an imminent threat to my life and safety. Which it never reached. But I assess, this is how I use that same type of thing for people around me. As you are situationally aware, you're applying this same level thing. You should always be at yellow. You're right. This, as your personal being, you should be at a yellow when you're out and about. But I'm talking about when I'm looking at people, I'm assigning them a color as far as their level of threat to me.
Yeah, that makes
because like I said, you're just going to look at people and you're going to say there's not a threat there, and you're right. There's not a threat there. So it's just a tool that I use to assess people around me. I'll finish this story. We got 30 minutes. I'm going to just run this break real quick, unless you want to not run any breaks at all, which we could go the whole hour at this rate.
No, you go ahead. I think what we'll do too is we had discussed the system of federalism in Switzerland, and that really ties into what we started out with at the beginning of the show with this nationalist immigration policy. focused on diversity and attributes over merit, and that ties into the risks that we're facing today. So I'll let you bring us out, and then we'll come back in a few minutes and reset the table.
And then I'll just finish that story real quick.
Sure.
But just a good illustration, and then we can move on to these other things that we talked about. All right, I'm going to take us out here, Suzanne. Go ahead, give us.
All right, everybody. Join us at the next segment. Feel free to call in 717-467-1736 for a special edition here of the Wasatch Report with Jeff Johnson, one of the founders of the Renegade Rambler Radio Network and host of his own show, The Paradigm Shift. We'll be back.
You won't disappear when you wear Tail Gunner Apparel custom camo clothing and all natural bath and body products for women and men too. And don't forget to ask about their line of custom home products and bed scarves. Look awesome and feel even better. Tail Gunner Apparel on Facebook at Tail Gunner Apparel and at tailgunnerapparel.etsy.com. That's tailgunnerapparel.etsy.com.
Camouflage ain't nothing doesn't go with camouflage. You can't blend in the country. You can't stand out in the fashion world.
Renegade Ramblers Radio Network. 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the second segment. I think we're just going to split this thing in half today of the Wasatch Report, a special edition with my very good friend Jeff Johnson, one of the founders of the Renegade Rambler Radio Network and host of his very own show, The Paradigm Shift. And we usually go Monday mornings back to back, but we are starting to work in with our schedule some additional shows so we can have more mornings for you with a live radio lineup. And when we don't have live radio available, we're going to make more shows available to you as well. We have a loop. If you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Renegade Rambler Radio Network, you can listen, and we will be playing some of our older shows, and just made available the one will be airing, I believe, at 10 o'clock in the morning slot, the one that we're using now when we're not live. And that, as I mentioned at the top of the show, was my debate with Charles Heller from KVOI in Tucson, Arizona. And this was the show that I did for Mike Church's channel, the Crusade channel. So check them out as well. But that show, we discussed national reciprocity. Jeff, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just say that on Monday morning, you have a live show at 10, and Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. will be the replay every week of the Monday show. So all you folks that want to hear the replay of Suzanne's show, Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. So she does it live Monday. On Tuesday at the same time, it'll be replayed live. Then on Wednesday, right now, the only one we have available from Mike Church's network is that one, the replay. So on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., that show right now we're playing. And then as we get some more shows, I'm going to plug in on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, some more of those older Mike Church shows. So Wednesday right now is that other show. All right. So, but every Tuesday is a replay of your Monday show.
Awesome. And then what we'll do is let's let the most amount of people listen to this show with Charles Heller. I think it was really important. Then we'll bring some more on so they can hear. We've got some great celebrities that I interviewed, some great preppers, survivalists, and historians. We'll bring those in, and we're going to continue the character of that show with this one here, where again, when you look at things from the 18th century thinking idea to, applying 18th century principles to 21st century ideas, we have the way of looking at a viable solution for the situations we're dealing with today. Case in point is the immigration troubles that we are having, and most notably from Middle Eastern countries, from unvetted individuals who are here taking advantage of a diversity program, which is lottery based. Absolutely no vetting whatsoever is required from these countries that have people that we would never, ever, no sane person would ever want them in their community. But once again, the leftist progressives are not sane people, and they were putting all of us at risk to further their agenda. If I were one of the family members who were victimized by these people, I don't know how I could go through my life with such anger in my heart. I know as Christians we're supposed to forgive, but I don't think because of these policies I would get over that very easily. I don't know how anybody could, but it is truly infuriating. And this goes back to the 1965 Immigration Act, which was Ted Kennedy's baby, where it changed the focus of one that primarily benefited European countries to now bringing in people from third world countries that were uneducated, had nothing really to offer, and to bring them in here as well as their family. So it became more of a family focused, again, another feel good platitude based policy that just really served the purpose of bringing in more Democrat voters. So again, this is all about political power with absolutely no regard to the detrimental outcome. Did you want to say something, Jeff?
Oh no, I'm just listening.
Okay.
I was just typing.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something. So we're seeing a result of this right now. And this is why we have to, again, take what we were talking about in the earlier part of our show, situational awareness. These people are here. They're not going anywhere because they are hiding behind these constitutional platitudes of liberty, freedom, First Amendment rights that well, again, we're supposed to restrict a general government from being overbearing. Now, what there's, it's been expanded to say that we have First Amendment or constitutional rights to people that have never even entered this country. So to try and apply this to the entire world is proving to be very detrimental and in direct contravention to the interests of the American citizens. And that is really the first goal. The proper role of government is to protect the liberty of its citizens. But this behemoth in Washington, D.C. has taken up a life of its own. I say all the time, the Constitution was a Trojan horse. I think it's the biggest mistake we ever made, leaving the Articles of Confederation behind. Clearly, there were some improvements to be made, but that is why we have the terms of the preamble to form a more perfect union. Well, the union, the baby, turned on the master, which was the states, under the name of what we consider in the education system, patron Saint Lincoln, when he, again, under feel-good platitudes, went to war with America and a foreign entity, which became the Confederated States of America, on the restated purpose of ending slavery, which, as we know, was really to collect a tax. And as a result of this, now our union has become a nation, one national democracy instead of a constitutional republic. And we are seeing the results of this. Jeff, when 13 sovereign and independent states declared their independence, what did Jefferson say in the Declaration of Independence? These colonies ought to be free and independent states. That carried over to the Articles of Confederation. It carried over again when the sovereign and independent states, remember, state meant nation at the time, on a par with Great Britain, with Spain, with France, and so forth. So at the time, if you have to think about it, immigration was left to the sovereign and independent states. Each state had the right to determine who came in, who came out. Now, that is different from the constitutionally mandated power, enumerated power for Congress to have uniform rules of naturalization. Well, naturalization is not the same as immigration. And a noted self-proclaimed expert on the Constitution, I won't mention her name, you know, she drives me nuts, said that sanctuary cities were illegal because Congress had the authority to have uniform rules of naturalization. Well, what she's saying is, well, gee, I really don't understand the difference between immigration and naturalization, but this really does appeal to my following of flag-waving patriotards. Anyway, that's my little bit of negativity for the morning. But this is what happens, Jeff, when we get into this post-constitutional society now of immigration being a national issue. Because if we had it under the circumstances at the time, certain states that had borders external to the Union would have to surrender their sovereignty to determine who came in to benefit others. That wasn't the intention at the time. But again, purposes of naturalization, Congress had the authority to determine a uniform set of rules. So what have they done now? Again, they've jumped the rails. They've cast off their harness, their yoke of restraint, and said, well, now we're going to determine this for everybody. So you have these oligarchs in a 10 square mile swamp now dictating who can come in to and who we're going to put in remote areas of Idaho Falls. Well, you know, we got a little 5-year-old girl that was gang raped that might take exception to that. Maybe the local community doesn't want these people here. But again, you've got these immigration, these charitable organizations that set up shop again in these remote areas, these smaller communities. And look at what Obama did. He literally used these areas as trash cans to dump these people that are undesirable. Yes, I said it. They are undesirable. We don't want them here in communities that didn't support him in the election. How many do you think went to Hawaii? I'll tell you how many. 0. How many went to Joe Biden's state? 0. They're dumping these people, this vermin, in the backyards of the people that don't support them. Is that an unfair assessment, Jeff? It might not be politically correct, but I bet you it is accurate.
I think it's pretty accurate. And, you know, what brought this idea of a show today up was during this week, again, we had this New York attack, and it was perpetrated by a person that yelled a specific phrase from a specific religion. I think CNN said he said God is great in Arabic. So somehow we got to throw an anti-religious sentiment there. And let's be honest, an anti-Christian sentiment, because that's going to get that's going to trigger the God button on the leftists. And it was in Arabic. Well, it was in Arabic, so therefore, you know, we can't blame him. Anyway, go ahead. Right. Yeah. So what started my thinking is I had a discussion over with our good friend Sean Hoffine the other day, and we got talking about different ideologies. And I said, well, I call these folks cultural Marxists when we got into a discussion. And then, you know, I said, you know, well, you know, Marxism is an economic plan. And then I conceded the point to him that cultural Marxists may be a little bit redundant. So anyway, I'm going to start calling what these people are. They're Marxists. But what started this train of thought the other day was that we have two ideologies today that have killed millions and millions of people, and they are a danger. And we're bringing one of them in wholesale. And if you try to stop it, they'll go to court in some favorable state and stop the president applying an actual law that he is as executive to be able to apply. And he was going to stop all these people. And this judge illegally stopped an executive action where the president is actually executing a law passed by Congress to deny entrance by people that pose a threat into our country. Yeah, and here we have now another one of these people in our country. Yeah. Right. Now we have another person here going with an assault truck, killing people in New York City on a bike path.
So you have to ask yourself, what's going to be the logical response to this? We already know one of them has been to double down on the call to ban assault weapons. And again, assault is a state of mind. Whether or not something is an assault pen, an assault knife, an assault rifle is completely determined by the individual holding that item at the time. But again, that does not fly with the leftist mindset. So are we going to stop these places from allowing these trucks to be rented? ISIS has already determined that trucks are the choice, the weapon of choice for these attacks. They take down the most individual, more than any small vehicle would do. And so this has been the weapon of choice in numerous attacks. So, or are we going to really get down to the issue and say, you know, immediately Congress should have acted to stop this diversity lottery program, which is completely insane. You either care about security or you don't. And Jeff, digressing just a little bit, what has been the excuse for 17 years of nonstop warfare, trillions of dollars in debt on these endless wars in the Middle East? We are going to fight them over there, so we do not have to fight them over here. Well, what do we do then? We let them in. If you live in a really rotten neighborhood, do you leave your door wide open? And I submit to you that now, with the ability to travel around the world is a rotten neighborhood. So what do you do when you want to protect your citizens? You need to safeguard the borders. You don't say, well, there's just a small amount of people that we're going to let in. And yeah, they might be rotten to the core and they might want to kill us. But hey, diversity is important and we want to have these people. Why in the hell are we bringing in people from Somalia? That place is a poop hole. And it's not a poop hole for any other reason than the people of Somalia are incapable of making it anything other than a poop hole. Do you think they are going to bring values and traditions that will benefit America in any way, shape, or form? Or are they going to bring their poop hole mentality here? I cleaned that up.
Yes, I'm glad you did, because we are family friendly here, or we try to be.
So, and this is the problem when we're bringing in people based on an attribute other than merit. Thomas Jefferson even had a proposed law where they would be excluding vagabonds and other undesirables to bring to his country of Virginia. They wanted people that would contribute. Jeff, there is nothing wrong with applying these 18th century ideas to this 21st century problem that we are having, because statistics show, and this is unbiased, just flat out statistics, these people aren't educated, they are not as intelligent, they have different values, they are violent, but still we're going to somehow feel good about themselves by putting our own families at risk. And the people that are doing this live in gated communities. They have the armed security that they want to deny us. And somehow we're allowing this to happen. These people should be arrested. We should be, whatever happened to a good old tar and feathering? And you know what else is interesting? Is this very government that's taken upon a life of its own, which is founded upon violent revolution, made it against the law to advocate the violent overthrow of its own existence. Isn't that a little funny?
I haven't really considered that idea, but yes, I guess it is. But, you know, what really is interesting about this whole thing is that I just saw an article, and I don't have it. I didn't print it out because I wasn't intending to go this direction, but it was talking about the number of Syrian refugees that came in over the last few years, and it was thousands.
No, okay, right now, we're not calling them refugees. They're welfare migrants. Go on.
Okay, well, okay.
I
was
cranky.
Just going off this stuff. Okay, I was just going off what the story was saying.
Okay.
They are coming here for economic reasons. So, yes, you're correct. But there was only a mere few hundred Christians out of Syria that were allowed in. The vast, almost exclusively, they were Muslims. What could possibly go wrong with bringing thousands of Muslims here that are coming from a place where there's no freedom, very little freedom, because they live pretty much under a dictatorship. But there are some freedoms because the Christians are free to worship there, where ISIS isn't. And we are bringing in the Christians that would be an actual benefit, that actually share a common value. But we're bringing in the Muslims who, well, look, we had this one from Uzbekistan, got an assault truck and killed a bunch of people in New York City. We had those ones in California that shot up that one place out there.
San Bernardino.
At San Bernardino. You had the one that shot up the club
that,
down in Florida.
We had an attack in Morgan Hill when I was there on the power grid system and the communications system. Do we know who that is? I have a guess, but even if it wasn't, it shows how vulnerable we are. So we're bringing these people in, and we're not hardening our defenses. I'll let you continue.
Oh no, that was where I was just going with it. It was where we try to stop this migration, and the fact of the matter is, if you look back through history, go back further than recent history, because it's not falling true now. But during the 1800s and early 1900s, we allowed immigration, but at a certain level, and we would slow it down when we got a lot of people here until they assimilated into the American culture. We don't do that now. We just keep bringing them, masses. Every year, thousands and thousands more. We're not even trying to assimilate these people because they don't, number one, want to assimilate. And number two, they're coming here for their own, to get rich off of the people that are actually working because they're welfare immigrants. And then they're also coming here because they're going to spread jihad.
And how many Arab-friendly nations do they pass through on their way here? Many of them also shop for the countries that have the best programs and benefits available to them. That's why so many of them go to Sweden. So, and this ties back to looking at who is the threat and what we actually want to do about it. And, we're just ignoring this situation. And the other thing we have to think of is not just one person is coming in, but then what we call, and Donald Trump was talking about this the other day, chain migration. We're now, pursuant to the 1965 Act that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, we've got to bring in everybody and their hairdresser, it seems. So look at the first person that comes in. We're bringing in fighting age males, okay? These are the demographic description of the ISIS warriors that we are bringing in. And I want to ask you, when we're talking about values, what kind of a man, let's say this area is in crisis, what kind of a man would leave his family behind and say, I'm going to the United States, but when the government allows, you can follow with me. Any man worth allowing into this country would never leave his family or his country's side in times of chaos. He would stay and fight. I remember years ago, back when they had the famine going on in Ethiopia, they had newscasters. I was watching this when I was in California. They had a newscaster on the verge of tears interviewing a man who looked to me in pretty darn good shape, Jeff, okay? And this newscaster saying, this is so-and-so, and his entire family starved to death, and he's the only one left. And my first thought was, what the hell are you doing being left behind? You should be the first one to starve. So this is the garbage that we are bringing in to this country that has absolutely no decency with regards to their own families, who would leave them behind, who would leave them to the wolves that they themselves have the benefit of escaping. This is absolute trash that we're allowing in.
All right, I had to go find this article because it's going to tie into this. This is the Daily Mail, and I believe the Daily Mail is out of Britain. And their headline, I'm just going to read the headline. I'm not going to read the article. Trump reveals New York terror suspect brought in 23 family members after winning green card lottery, as he says it's time to end chain migration. So that was Trump saying it's time to end chain migration. But after he won the lottery, set up by Schumer and a whole bunch of these others to give these terrorists of fighting age that we're bringing in, as you're saying, he brought in 23 quote-unquote family members.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, we didn't just win him. We won 23 others just like him.
Yeah, and this is the thing. They give you these statistics, but then they don't tell you all the other ones that they're bringing with them. Well, we don't want to punish the family members of these people. They did nothing wrong. I tell you who else did nothing wrong is those of us that have suffered under these affirmative action programs. I lived in San Francisco in 1970 when the busing situation came about, and the Supreme Court decided that they were going to dictate what communities and what children of what communities, regardless of the motivation for their parents moving into these neighborhoods, were going to spend 2 hours a day on buses so Black kids in a study could feel good about themselves. And I'll get more into that. But here was the bottom line, was our school had kids bussed in from the other side of town, a very, very negative part of town, very dangerous part of town, and our little community where we could walk to school. Now, I was supposed to be bused to that community, became a war zone. For the first time in my life, I saw police officers lined up as these kids got off the bus, and they came out there. You know, when we talked about earlier in the show, walking around looking for a fight, how you don't want to do that so you're a victim. When you're trying to avoid being a victim, you want to be assertive but not looking like you're confrontational. That's what these kids were doing. And Jeff, they were starting out in first grade. This was grammar school. Kids at that age couldn't go to the bathroom anymore because we would be assaulted. So, you know, we're trying to redress past grievances of slavery or save these people from, you know, a war-trodden society. But you know what? We have systems of fair play and justice and liberty in this country, and we are trampling them and subjecting our children, our communities to violence and physical assaults so certain politicians can feel good about themselves. And these liberals never bring these people into their own homes, into their own communities, or pay for this out of their own pockets. That's the issue with the progressive era. What they want to do is take money out of other people's pockets to pay for policies that make us unsafe and make them feel better about themselves. And we need to really put a stop to this.
Yeah. And, you know, we're running out of time here, and it's pretty crazy because I never even got to the second ideology. I kind of touched on a little bit that we were going to talk about it because there was two ideologies that's killed millions. One was this is religious Islam. We talked about that a bit. The other one's economic, and that's Marxism. And that was where this whole thing started, this whole idea for a show, because
we never got to
I was talking to we never got to it. But we have I'm no longer going to call these people progressives or all these other pretty names. They're all Marxists, and don't get it wrong. They live an ideology, and it is Marxism, and they will destroy anyone that does not get in line with Marxism.
And here's what we'll do. We'll just, you know, you let me know when you have another day available, and we'll carry this on. And I want to address the Mises.org article on Switzerland, because this is a great example of decentralization in action, and it actually works. Somebody said to me the other day, you know, you complain a lot, but you don't have any solutions. Do you have a better idea than our system of government that we are currently living under? And I said, yes, in fact, I do. So we will address this. Jeff, you let me know when you have an extra day free, and we'll just kind of continue on. I think we make a great team. Want to thank those that have joined us for listening today. If you're listening afterwards, I want to thank you for that too. We really appreciate your support. This has been Suzanne Sherman and Jeff Johnson, co-hosting a special edition on the Wasatch Report here on the Renegade Rambler Radio Network. 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers.